What's going on, friends? Harley-Davidson has really done things their own way for years and years, year after year. Harley-Davidson has very rarely changed anything with their motorcycles, especially their engines. Yes, the engines themselves have got a little bit of updating here and there. We've branched off into different engines like the V-Rod, the Revolution Max, and then there was that little 750 line that we really don't speak of. But Harley-Davidson has always just done things differently, and you really got to give Harley-Davidson credit for how much power these motors can make, even though they really don't make a whole lot of sense. Now, when it comes to motorcycle engines, the go-to has always been single or dual overhead cam. But for years and years, Harley has kept it traditional. They've stuck with the push rods in everything they made up until the V-Rod. But with the pushrod engines, you really got to think. Everybody wants to say, oh yeah, these motors are outdated, they don't make any power, they don't do this, they don't do that. Well, that's not what these bikes were designed for. These bikes were designed to make good low-end torque, to haul luggage, to haul two-up, to go cross-country, and to go cruise on a Saturday night down the boulevard. That engine is perfectly suited for what these bikes are intended to do. Now, the beauty of these Harley engines is that if you decide to, you really want to hop them up, you really want to get some power out of them, you can have a lot of fun with a Harley-Davidson motorcycle that has really been hot rodded. A Harley could really put out some serious power, especially now that we have the Milwaukee 8. Guys, if you enjoyed the video today, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. So a lot of people will always say, basically the Harley haters, they're always going to come out and say, yeah, well, Harleys are underpowered, or I could get this bike that has so much more this and that on it for so much cheaper. But I'm not really going to talk about the resale value. If you know, you know. There's no other feeling like a Harley-Davidson motorcycle out there. There's just something about a Harley engine and the way they vibrate and the way they run down the road. And I'll even argue that when it comes to the V-Rod. Even though it's the water-cooled dual overhead cam motor, that bike still has a vibration to it and a feel that you can't get from any other bike. And I rode a lot of bikes of all different brands, all different manufacturers, all different styles, you name it. I've probably been on it at one point or another, and still nothing feels like that V-Rod. Now, technically on paper, Harley-Davidson's engine doesn't look like a very good design because of the way they fire. It's very oblong, they use roller bearings. There's a lot of things to these engines that on paper, it just doesn't make sense that it would work, let alone be able to produce a lot of the power that we're seeing out of these, especially these late model Milwaukee 8s and even a lot of twin cams. You just logically shouldn't be able to get that much power out of them and at least do it reliably, but we still do. Harley-Davidson, as I mentioned, has done things different than anybody else. Harley continued to use the roller bearing bottom ends. Now, obviously, the roller bearing bottom end probably isn't the best choice. It worked a lot better when we had the Timken bearings, but the reason why Harley runs the roller bearing is because Harley's cylinders are actually directly in line. And with it being directly in line, it's kind of hard to get a plain bearing design to play nice with that. That's why you see a lot of your modern cruisers like, we'll just use the Indian for example. The cylinders are offset slightly, and that uses a single pin crank, but it also runs in plain bearings. And plain bearings are great. I mean, it works, but if Harley-Davidson did that, it just wouldn't be a Harley. And it kind of sucks that they can't do that, but because it wouldn't sound the same, and it just kind of throw everything off. Now, you might think it doesn't make sense that Harley really hasn't strayed from the traditions and the way they build their motorcycles. But we saw with Victory had a really good product. They were trying something completely new. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of their styling, but it was kind of a modernized style with kind of a throw. It's kind of modernized, but it still kind of paid homage to the days gone by. But the Victory engine, on the other hand, was a completely different animal. This thing had the single pin crank. They still sounded pretty good. And they had the little hydraulic pucks in there where you didn't have to adjust anything on the valve train, even though it had overhead cams. The issue with the Victory, and don't get me wrong, they did a great job of really advertising it and pushing it and comparing it to Harley. I think the styling and everything there just wasn't there. Victory did have a cult following, but they just didn't draw people away from Harley-Davidson like they would have wanted to. But you really can't take nothing away from the Victory Freedom engines. Then along came Indian. Basically, when Indian came along, you can't have two major brands competing under one roof. It just wasn't working, so they pretty much stuffed out Victory, and they went the direction with Indian. but it's like they almost learned with Victory. They went with a pushrod motor in the Indian, and not only that, they did make their V-twin pay homage to the days gone by of what the original Indians used to look like. And it's obviously worked. It's been a really good selling point for those types of motorcycles. It just works on Indians and Harleys. And I'm using Victory as an example because they were the first new motorcycle company that tried something more modern within the engine out of America. I know the Japanese have done this for years, but they were still charging that premium price like a Harley-Davidson for a Victory at the time. But with that modern engine, it didn't sell. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with the engine. It was a great motor, but I don't know. Was it the look? You guys tell me. Let me know in the comments. Why did Victory just not sell? Was it because the engine was non-traditional? Was it just the look of the bikes? I mean, that personally, I feel like that had a lot to do with it. But when it comes to Harley-Davidson's engine, haters are going to hate. But these are really good motors. They are very reliable, and they could really put some power out. And this is where you have to give these engines credit, is the amount of power you can get out of them. Between the torque, the horsepower, and how fast they come on down low, you just shouldn't be able to do that with a bike that is basically a controlled misfire. It is extremely impressive. And then they've got that Screamin Eagle 120R motor that's like 160 horse, 160 torque. It's just unfathomable in my mind with a bike that has basically a controlled misfire can make that kind of power. So a lot of people might ask you, oh, why would you want to ride a Harley? You could get so much more motorcycle over here. Well, the truth for me is the power delivery. I love the way these bikes deliver their power. They come on super strong down low. They have a great mid-range. And if you actually do rev them out, believe it or not, a Harley-Davidson does have a little bit of top end on it. Granted, depending on what you have done or how many cubic inches you're pushing, it might take a little bit to get there, but it'll get there. So while we're talking about power, when it comes to laying down power, if you've ever had the opportunity to ride a hot-rodded Harley-Davidson, I mean something that's putting out well over 100 horsepower, well over 100 foot-pounds of torque, you will get hooked. These bikes are everything that you never imagined what a Harley could be. And that's why I love doing this channel and sitting here and letting you guys know about all the little tips and tricks that you can do to your bike to get it there and not break the bank. That has been the basis of this channel from day one, is to put out everything that I've learned over the years to you guys. The things that I had to buy, try, or basically learn the hard way, or I searched forever trying to find this information before I had to do something myself and just wasn't able to find it. I wanted to take everything that I knew and kind of put it all in one place for everybody in one go-to channel where you find the right video you're looking for, pretty much answer all your questions. So guys, don't let anybody talk down about a Harley-Davidson. They're not for everybody. I understand that. A lot of people, you either love Harley or you hate Harley. But you really cannot take away anything from the 45-degree V-twin and what we're able to do with these engines. And it's going to be a shame, and if Harley eventually has to phase out the air-cooled engine and put in a water-cooled motor, and oh, God help us, we have to go to electric. I don't even want to imagine a big old live wire electric motor stuffed into a street glide. I'm just not ready for that yet. But anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and please don't forget, let me know in the comments what you think really killed the Victory. Was it the styling? Was it the engine? Guys, let me know. I want your opinions on that. But anyhow, guys, until next week, you guys stay safe on the streets, ride smart, bundle up, stay warm out there. It's getting really cold, but I will catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.